remember my childhood vividly, but instead of warmth, I felt an overwhelming chill of neglect. The sun would pour through the kitchen window, illuminating the breakfast table where my sibling sat, basking in the glow of my parents' admiration. "Look at you, the straight-A student," my mother would exclaim, her voice dripping with pride as my sibling downed the last bites of the fluffy pancake stack before rushing off to yet another soccer practice, already dressed in the pristine uniform that looked like it belonged on a champion. Meanwhile, I sat at the opposite end of the table, staring down at my bowl of cereal as the milk started to seep into the soggy bits. "You're going to do great things too, right?" my father would say, but I could see it in their eyes. My words were meant to fill a silence, barely rising above the din of sibling accolades that drowned out my very existence. I was invisible, existing as a mere backdrop in the family drama that played out in our home. Birthdays were stark reminders of my place in the family. While my siblings' celebrations featured lavish parties with friends, the scent of balloons and sweet frosting wafting through the air, mine consisted of a simple cake hastily baked the night before, speckled with candles that leaned more to one side due to an unsteady hand. I remember the taste of that cake. It was so sweet it felt almost like a lie, that momentary burst of sugary delight followed by the bitter aftertaste of disappointment. "Sorry we couldn't have more people over this year," my mother would say, her voice laced with guilt that only served to deepen the wounds. I nodded, forcing a smile that felt like it could shatter at any moment because my heart ached in that moment. Each year felt like a countdown to a culmination I would never witness, the clock ticking in cruel mockery with me trapped behind glass, wanting to break free. But nothing prepared me for the day my parents sat us down, their faces twisted into a mask of excitement. We were gathered in the living room, the walls plastered with awards and memories of my siblings' victories that seemed to gleam brightly against the dullness of my own accomplishments. "We have fantastic news," my father boomed, his deep voice echoing in the room while my sibling practically radiated enthusiasm, bouncing in place like a child in a candy store. My instincts screamed a warning as the anticipation hung thick in the air. When my parents revealed that they intended to give my sibling a $50,000 loan to launch a business, I felt as though I had been punched in the gut. It was as if the air had disappeared, and in its place hung a heavy weight of despair. I remember looking at my sibling's face, glowing with excitement and possibility, while the shadows of my own financial struggles piled up like a crumbling mountain, debts looming like dark clouds that threatened to swallow me whole. What about me? I wondered, a silent scream echoing inside my chest. My own dreams felt like distant stars glittering in a black void. I had scraped together every penny to make it through college, only to drown in student loans and mounting bills. I had spent my youth chasing their approval, yearning for acknowledgement and love that was forever just out of reach. "I guess I will just have to make it on my own," I whispered to myself, bitterness saturating my throat. The room was spinning. I glanced at their faces, beaming with pride and hope for my sibling, yet when they turned to me their eyes drifted as if searching for something they could not find. It was a familiar feeling, the sense of being a ghost, unseen and unheard. "This the most amazing opportunity," my sibling chirped, utterly oblivious to the turmoil inside me. I forced a smile, even as a hollow pang echoed in my chest. "Yeah, it's fantastic," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. I clenched my fists, the tension curling my fingers into tight knots, longing for recognition in a household that had grown comfortable with neglecting my presence. My sibling was the golden child, the one who excelled in everything, never missing a beat, while I felt like a shadow, running alongside but always just out of reach. "I'll figure things out," I reassured myself, although part of me knew it was a lie. "Isabella, you're going to be okay, right?" My mother's warm voice cut through the fog of my swirling thoughts. I looked at her, and in that moment I could see the worry etched on her features. It stung, this fleeting concern. "Yeah, of course," I replied, swiping at my eyes as if doing so could erase the fact that I felt trapped in a life designed for someone else. The doubt clawed at my insides, leaving a bitter taste that lingered long after the conversation ceased, long after the rapture of my siblings' news had faded into idle chatter and enthusiastic planning. "Where do you want to take your business?" My mother's voice bubbled over in excitement, and my siblings' eyes widened like a child on Christmas morning, all dreams coming to life before them. I was lost in their excitement, a spectator in my own home. "I was thinking I could open a cafe, something quaint, cozy, a perfect little spot for studying and gatherings," my sibling responded, already planning the details that shimmered brightly in their mind while I stifled a sigh. "Sounds lovely," I replied, tightening my jaw at how effortlessly they secured the dreams I had always wished were within my reach. The kitchen clattered with enthusiasm, but the sound felt muffled to my ears as I ventured further into my memories of neglect and longing. "Maybe someday you could come work for me," my sibling said with a playful grin, pulling me back to the moment. Everyone laughed, but I felt the weight of the words hang heavy in the air. "I mean, you are great with people," they continued, oblivious to the knife twisting deeper in my heart within their cheerful chatter. "What do you think?" As the laughter echoed around me, I slipped into silence, my heart hardening with resentment. I wanted to scream, to shout at the unfairness of it all, yet I remained still where I was guaranteed to be unnoticed. In that moment, engulfed by the warmth and excitement of celebration, I could feel the icy chill of my own neglected dreams creeping further into my bones. Little did they know the spark ignited within me that day would not fizzle out. No, I clenched my fists tighter, letting the anger sear through, a quiet vow-taking root. I would not be forgotten anymore. The fragrant scent of rosemary and thyme wafted through the air, mingling with the rich aroma of roasted turkey as I stepped into the dining room. My parents' home was always a spectacle during the holidays, filled with golden decorations and glistening lights, and yet, amidst the festive cheer, I felt more like a ghost than a family member. Laughter echoed around the table, vibrant and loud, but it seemed to hum just above my head, as if I were encased in a bubble, hovering on the periphery of the celebrations. My siblings sat at the head of the table, their bright smile radiant and infectious, effortlessly commanding the attention of everyone around them. They wore a tailored blazer that clung perfectly to their frame, an ensemble I knew was a testament to the success they had cultivated, with the support of our parents' unwavering backing. I took my usual seat near the end of the table, a position I had unwillingly claimed over the years. The floral tablecloth beneath me was crisp and fresh, a stark contrast to the stale feeling in my chest. The sound of glasses clinking, forks clattering, and cheerful chatter filled the room, but it only aggravated the dull ache of inadequacy pulsing in my head. My parents, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant, beamed at my sibling, completely captivated by their tales of triumph. "Did I tell you about the expansion?" my sibling began, leaning back in their chair, their laughter bubbling out like champagne. "We moved into a new location last month and the clientele has already doubled. It is going to be a game changer." I looked into my plate, the food suddenly seeming unappetizing. Every bite I took felt like salt on an open wound. Each word spilled from my sibling's mouth was a reminder of my struggles, a fresh slice of the quiet torment I carried every day. I knew I had worked hard, just as hard, if not harder than they had. Years of juggling 2 and sometimes 3 jobs left me exhausted but steadfastly persistent. I yearned to share my own story, to speak of the late nights spent cleaning floors or the weekends dedicated to waitressing, not for the recognition but to scrape by week after week. Yet my voice felt trapped within my throat like a bird caged, fluttering anxiously but unable to escape. "Isabella, you should really consider making some investments," my mother chimed in, a well-meaning smile on her face as she nudged my hand gently in encouragement. "I mean, look at your sibling, you can do this too." The conviction in her tone struck me harder than any criticism could have. My heart raced, a sharp pang of resentment slicing through me. Why could nobody see how hard I was fighting? My breaths quickened as a veil of frustration began to obscure my vision. Turning to my mother, I searched for an explanation, but all I found was her unwavering adoration for my sibling. "Mom, I began, but the words stuck, the emotions clawing their way back down. The silent scream of all the times I had been overlooked, all the good job, dear, pats on the back while my sibling basked in gushing praise, pressed weightily upon my chest, tight and suffocating. My sibling didn't miss a beat. "Come on, Isabella," they chimed, their eyes sparkling with a mix of playfulness and something more, something taunting. "You could be living the dream, too, just take a leap, ask Mom and Dad for some help, you know they would love to support you." The mirth in their tone pierced deeper than intended, a snide undertone betraying a sense of superiority. A swell of heat coursed through me, rising like lava, threatening to spill over with each casual jest. "Yeah, I guess I just prefer not to ride the coattails of others," I snapped, too loud, too cutting. The tension in the air ballooned and I instantly felt all eyes on me. "I'm not trying to offend you," my sibling said, a flicker of surprise crossing their features. "I'm just saying that some assistance could really jumpstart your career." "Right, because I've never tried that before," I retorted, my voice trembling with anger. "All I ever hear is how great you are, how much you've accomplished with the money from Mom and Dad. What about my hard work?" Their expression shifted, caught off guard but quickly morphing into a familiar blend of annoyance and feigned innocence. "Come on, Isabella, we all have our paths, you just have to find yours." The truth was that I had been yearning to do just that, to forge my own way without help from anyone, least of all from the family that had placed me in this box of inadequacy. "My path isn't your path," I mumbled as I looked down at my plate, the mashed potatoes now cold and uninviting. Silence enveloped us, heavy and uncomfortable as I fought back tears threatening to spill. My heart raced. I wished for a doorway and escape from this suffocating moment, but I could not leave, not now. This was a defining moment, a breaking point I had been unconsciously building towards for years. Throwing my napkin on the table, I rose abruptly. "Excuse me, I need some air." I didn't wait for a response, pushing my chair back so hard that it clanged against the wall, the sound echoing like a bomb detonating in the tension-filled room as I rushed outside onto the cold patio. The chill of the evening air hit me like a slap, sharp and revitalizing. I felt more alive out here, amidst the winter's chill, a reminder of the isolation I had come to embrace. I could still hear the muffled sounds of laughter and conversation through the window, yet it had morphed into a distant hum, far removed from me. I pulled in deep, frantic breaths, my heart thunderous within my chest. Enough, I whispered to myself, clenching my fists as I stared into the darkening evening sky. I am done being the invisible one, done being the afterthought, no more. In that moment, something clicked within me. I could feel it, the kindling of a fire against the coolness of betrayal, the swift rush of determination rising up to meet the fears that had held me captive for so long. I would gather my meager savings. I would prove my worth not just to them but to myself. Without any help, without relying on anyone's backing, I would create something meaningful. I would be seen. And with that determination crystallizing in my heart, I turned away from the warm glow of the house, resolute in my silent vow that I was finally ready to take action. The sun hung low outside my cramped apartment window, painting the walls a warm orange as I stared at my laptop screen. The faint hum of its fan and the sound of my fingers tapping away filled the silence. Ever since I started this journey, it felt as if I had entered a new realm where time bent to my will. The clock worked against me, yet somehow it moved in perfect rhythm with my frantic thoughts. With each passing month, I poured everything I had, sleepless nights, meals skipped, and social invitations declined, into my small online venture. Those moments of solitude, illuminated only by the glow of the screen, were both a blessing and a curse. I was building something that was mine, something that could change my life. As I looked through my spreadsheets filled with numbers I barely understood, a warm sensation crept over me. Another win. My heart raced as I scrolled to the column that read total revenue. The figure had crossed the milestone of $100,000, and I knew I could hardly believe it. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a rush of disbelief wash over me, mixed with a tantalizing thrill. I did it, I whispered to myself, tasting the words as they rolled off my tongue. But every time I felt that spark of joy, memories of my sibling boasting about their so-called success flooded my mind, stoking the flame of determination within me. "What do you think you're doing?" I imagined their voice laced with condescension. "You can't compete with me." The thought made my stomach churn, but at the same time it ignited a fire in my belly. I bit my lip, recalling the last family gathering where my sibling gleefully recounted their most recent victory. I could see their face, lighted up with pride, holding court in the living room while I remained submerged in the background, a mere shadow to their spotlight. No more. I couldn't wait for the next family gathering. The adrenaline coursing through me gave me confidence. I envisioned the scene vividly, the large dining table laden with homemade dishes, the smell of baked ziti and garlic bread wafting through the air, the laughter among my relatives creating a joyful hum of indistinct chatter. But most importantly, I pictured the moment. While everyone laughed, I would simply stand up, clear my throat, and announce my milestone as if I were triumphantly unveiling a trophy. "By the way," I imagined saying, "I just crossed the $100,000 mark in my first year." The reactions would be priceless, mouths agape, eyes wide. I could almost hear the silence falling, then dreams turned into plans. I grinned at my reflection in the screen, envisioning how I could craft the perfect reveal. Would I document my success in a polished, professional presentation, or perhaps a playful speech with humor sprinkled throughout? My mind raced with possibilities. For weeks, the family gathering was all I could think about, and I spent nights refining my pitch, rehearsing the words that would tumble gracefully from my lips. The days crawled by, yet I reveled in my anticipation. My fingers danced over my keyboard, constructing marketing strategies and refining the brand image I envisioned. I wanted it all: an online presence that would stand out against the backdrop of others and branding that screamed authenticity. "They won't know what hit them," I muttered to myself, a mischievous grin playing at the corners of my lips. Each afternoon, with the sun warming my face through the window, I found myself lost in the world of email responses, supplier negotiations, and social media engagement. The fervor fueled me, bringing happiness I hadn't expected. I began to thrive in a way I had never felt before, gaining followers who actually engaged with my brand. There were comments filled with encouragement and curiosity, people wanting to know more about me and the journey I had taken. It felt good, even validating. Weeks turned, and before I knew it, the family gathering was upon me. I spent the days leading up to it much like I had spent the months prior, nervously checking my goals, ensuring that everything was polished and perfect. The day arrived, and the aroma of home-cooked meals wafting through the air filled me with nostalgia. Even as I walked into the welcoming chaos of laughter and joy, the unease knotted my stomach. I reminded myself that this was my moment. This was the time to solidify my success in front of everyone who had doubted me. "Are you excited about the party tonight?" a family member asked, brushing past me with a plate full of desserts. "Oh yeah, of course, it should be fun," I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, I was a swirling storm of nerves and excitement. Every moment was a new opportunity to gauge reactions. I listened intently to conversations about my siblings' accomplishments, the sales they had closed, and the projects they were spearheading. The praise felt like shards of glass in my heart, and I had to swallow hard to keep from exploding. Finally, as dinner unfolded and laughter rode high, it was time to take the stage. I cleared my throat, my heart pounding like a drum. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" My voice echoed in the cozy room, and a hush fell over the chatter. "Thank you, I have something exciting to share." The room tilted the tiniest bit as all eyes turned to me, a mix of curiosity and excitement flashing through the crowd. My sibling looked up, eyebrows furrowing slightly, perhaps sensing something. I could feel every pulse echoing in my veins. I just wanted you all to know that I hit a huge milestone in my business. I earned over $100,000 in my first year, gasps reverberated. I was met with wide eyes and dropped jaw, especially from my sibling. Their smugness fell away like the curtain pulled up on a theatrical reveal, filled with disbelief and surprise. It was my moment, and I let it wash over me like a tidal wave. In that instant, I felt not only victorious but liberated. I saw everything I had worked for reflected in the faces of my family, glimmers of respect racing across the crowd like an unseen thread connecting us all. It was electric, and it was glorious. I had done it. The shimmering lights of the dining room danced over the deeply polished mahogany table, illuminating the vibrant array of dishes set before us. The welcoming warmth of the gathered family wrapped around me like a favorite blanket, yet it felt constricting and heavy, a reminder of all the things I had fought against to get to this moment. I held my breath, fighting off the rush of emotions swirling inside me, excitement, anxiety, exhilaration, and a hint of something darker that I barely wanted to acknowledge. I had waited for this moment, planned for it meticulously, yet the tightness in my chest betrayed me. As I walked into the family gathering, I took a swift survey of the room. Laughter echoed around me, punctuated by the clinking of silverware on glass, voices competing for attention. I smiled in a way that was designed to appease, but inside my heart raced like a racehorse bolting from the starting gate. My sibling was, as usual, center stage, basking in the glow of fawning relatives, enthralling them with tales of their newfound business acumen and illustrious achievements. They were the golden child, as usual, reeling everyone in with colorful stories that made them look like the luminary of the family. I just landed a deal with that large corporation. My sibling boasted, their eyes sparkling with triumph. They're going to use my platform for their marketing. Can you believe it? As everyone leaned in, captivated, I could feel the familiar pang of envy twisting my insides. I had been there once, relishing in the attention, reveling in the accolades. But those days felt far behind me, a childhood memory eclipsed by the weight of responsibility and the harsh realities of failure. They didn't know how low I had sunk, nor did they know the lengths I had gone to climb back. Dinner continued to unfold around me as my sibling's voice hummed on, rich and full of self-satisfaction. Every laugh, every nod of approval from my family felt like a dagger to my heart. I had hidden away my accomplishments, nursing the wounds of past failures with careful secrecy. But today I could hold my head high. Today I would speak. I took a deep breath as laughter crescendoed, my hands gripping the chair beneath me. It was time. As I stood, the chair scraped against the floor, drawing curious eyes toward me. I could hear the conversations dim down to a low buzz, the weight of anticipation settling in the air. I would like to share something, I began, my voice quivering yet firm. A few heads turned, resting on me like a spotlight. They had always underestimated my resolve, but today they would see a different side of me. I've been working hard over the past year. You all probably know that I've struggled for a while, but I want to tell you about my journey. Isabella, what are you talking about? My sibling interrupted, flashing a false smile that didn't quite reach their eyes. Surely you don't mean that you've been up to, what was it? More craft projects? No, I pressed on, silence falling like a gentle snow. I've built my own business. Through every setback and against every expectation, I fought to rise back up. Despite the challenges, I've managed to generate $100,000 in profits. Gasps erupted. It was as though time itself had come to a halt. My siblings' expression shifted from joviality to disbelief, their mouth parting slightly as they choked on their drink. The sound of liquid sputtering across the table made heads turn, and for a brief moment I reveled in the shock that rippled through the room. Wait, what? My sibling finally managed, wiping their chin with a napkin, cheeks flushed with something ignited. Between astonishment and anger lay jealousy, ripe and sour. You're kidding, right? You can't possibly expect us to believe you've done all this on your own. I have, I replied, the firmness in my tone both pushing back against their dismissive incredulity and solidifying my resolve. Without any financial help, just grit and determination. It's been tough, but I made it work. The aura of disbelief quickly transformed into tension, the kind that seeped through the air like a charged storm. My family's wide eyes flicked between my sibling and me, gauging the shift that had happened, the unthinkable reversal of fortunes. I would not let this golden moment slip away. How can this even be possible? My sibling waved a hand dismissively, their voice rising. You don't know the first thing about running a business. How did you succeed without our parents? I learned, I shot back, my voice steady despite the thundering in my chest. I learned to create, to innovate, and above all, to persist while you were living off their expectations and praises. I carved my own path. The table grew quiet. The only sounds now came from the faint clinking of forks and the hum of the overhead lights. I could almost taste the tension as it thickened in the air. My siblings' eyes narrowed, the jealousy radiating off them like heat from a flame. Let's not forget, they retorted, their voice dripping with disdain, that you had it easier because we had family connections. You were always the poor little sister struggling to find her way. I did struggle, I replied, my resolve hardening, but I also fought to break free from that stereotype. I didn't wade in self-pity. I took control, something you've never needed to do. You've always had the safety net of our family's name to fall back on. The murmurs of my family slowly began as they realized the truth overshadowed the pride my sibling held. They were finally witnessing my metamorphosis, no longer the quiet shadow behind a bright star but instead emerging fiercely into my own light. As they processed my words, I felt a shift in the atmosphere like the calm before a storm. A look of anger and disbelief settled onto my sibling's face, battling against the abandoned applause of admiration from our family. "Isabella," they said slowly, their voice cold, "you may have ruffled some feathers, but this is my domain. Don't expect a round of applause from me. I will reclaim what you've taken." "Let the applause come from worthiness," I shot back, every syllable laden with newfound strength. "It's my journey, my story, and I refuse to back down." With that, I stepped back, feeling the exhilaration of finally standing tall, my heart still racing, but this time with fierce determination. It was my moment, no longer overlooked, no longer reduced to shadows. I would become my own legacy, regardless of the old empire looming beside me. The astonished gazes of my family washed over me, and for once, as I continued to speak, defiance danced on the edge of my lips, breathing life into dreams I had nearly abandoned. In that moment, I felt as if the years of neglect and teasing were finally washed away. The air in the family gathering was thick with the scent of rich, roasted meat and sweet desserts, but all I could feel was that heady mixture of triumph and vindication swirling in my chest. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before stepping into the center of the room, where laughter and chatter hummed like a warm blanket around my family. Their faces, once so familiar yet distant, were now painted with curiosity. I could see my siblings sitting awkwardly at the edge of the group, their fingers nervously tapping on the table, painfully aware of my presence. With a genuine smile that I had rehearsed 1,000 times in my mind, I cleared my throat to capture their attention. "You may not recognize me," I began, keeping my tone light yet firm, "but it's me, Isabella." The moment the name left my lips, I watched as their eyebrows shot up in surprise, a flicker of disbelief igniting in their eyes. Their gazes darted to one another, caught between shock and eagerness to hear what I had to say. "Isabella, seriously," my sibling said, feigning a casual demeanor while shifting uncomfortably. "What are you doing here?" I let out a soft chuckle, my heart racing with the thrill of the reveal. "Well, it's a family gathering, isn't it? Besides, I've got some amazing stories to share." As I spoke, I leaned slightly forward, making sure my voice carried through the room. "You all remember the kid who barely scraped by in school, right?" I could see the memory come rushing back to them. A younger me, frazzled and overshadowed, lost in a haze of taunts and jabs. That kid had dreams, dreams bigger than Riverton itself. The atmosphere shifted as I recounted the long nights I spent studying under a flickering light, fueled by determination and a fierce desire to prove my worth. When I was working 2 jobs just to pay rent and tuition, I learned what it meant to fight for something. I continued, painting my struggles in vivid colors. The muffled sounds of silverware clinking and plates shuffling began to fade as their attention anchored on my words. I remember the times I got knocked down by setbacks, rejections, heartbreaks, but every single time I rose again, stronger than before. In that moment, I felt a profound satisfaction wash over me. I could see their expressions shift from disbelief to admiration, a sense of respect starting to bloom like a flower piercing through concrete. I watched the flicker of envy spark in my siblings' eyes as I spoke of my accomplishments, highlighting the projects I had contributed to, the accolades I had earned, all achievements that once felt unreachable. "Today I stand before you not just as Isabella, but as a published author," I announced, my voice echoing with pride. "I launched my own business last year, and it's thriving beyond what I could have imagined." The corners of my family's mouths twitched upward. "A business owner? That's incredible, Isabella," one of my relatives exclaimed, her eyes shining with sincere interest. The warmth and resounding acknowledgement in her voice made me feel alive in ways I hadn't thought possible. "Yeah, well, it's not easy," I added, courage drumming in my chest. There were a lot of sleepless nights, doubts that crept in, and moments when I questioned everything, but I pushed through. I paused for emphasis, allowing my words to sink in. I could see my siblings shift slightly, the power dynamic morphing as their admiration began to chip away at their previous indifference. "I've learned to listen to my gut, focus on my vision, and surround myself with positive influences." Positivity, huh? My sibling interjected, sarcasm dripping from their voice, but I didn't let it get to me. "You used to be such a doormat." I laughed lightly, my spirit refusing to wane. "That's true, but I discovered that being true to myself was the most liberating feeling. It's strange how transforming pain into fuel for your purpose can change the entire course of your life." I watched their expression twist into something uncomfortable. The envy in their eyes was almost palpable, and I thrived on it. "Isabella, your stories are inspiring," someone else piped in, their tone soaked in admiration. I savored that moment, relishing the recognition I had yearned for during all those years of isolation. I had been the black sheep, and now I was a force to be reckoned with. "You didn't let us know about your achievements," another voice said, barely masking its surprise. "Why keep it a secret?" "It's not a secret," I said softly yet deliberately. "It was a decision. I wanted to rise on my own." I wanted to show myself no, not only that I wanted to show you and everyone else that I was worth believing in, worth noticing. I grew tired of being forgotten. Each word seemed to pierce through the fabric of their indifference like a knife cutting through thick ice. As I glanced back at my sibling, I could see their grip on the table tightening, the discomfort bubbling to the surface. "Looks like you found your way after all," they muttered, and for a moment I felt a pang of empathy for the pain they carried. But it was too late. The years of neglect and the jabs had forged a shield around me that could not easily be fractured. "Yeah," I replied, the satisfaction bubbling within me. "I did find my way, and you all might want to ask yourselves how you missed the signs." I let that hang in the air for a moment, letting them ponder the implications of their past actions. The tables had turned, resentment had morphed into admiration, and with it came a bittersweet sense of revenge that tasted sweeter than the desserts that wafted through the room. Now, I was no longer the shadow that loomed in the background. I had stepped into the light, illuminating the truth behind my struggle. The winds of time had shifted, and they would regret their past indifference as the last echo of laughter faded and the door clicked shut behind family members who had long ago labeled me the black sheep. A hush fell in my small dining room. The scent of burnt sage from the candles I had lit still danced in the air, mingling with the aromatic remnants of the meal I had painstakingly prepared. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the remnants of what had been an unexpectedly triumphant evening. My heart raced, a blend of exhilaration and disbelief coursing through me. I had played their game, their party of ostentation and expectation, and I had won beyond my wildest dreams. Moments before, as guests applauded my presentation, my sibling had sat there, rigid with discomfort. I could practically feel the tension radiating off of them as they struggled to reconcile their own success with my unexpected brilliance. It was as if I had pulled the rug from under their carefully laid plans. "I didn't expect this from you," they had said earlier in a half-hearted compliment, their words a clumsy attempt at masking their surprise. I had smiled sweetly, nodding softly, knowing that beneath their facade, doubts were swirling like storm clouds. "Sometimes people can surprise you," I had replied, my voice steady but emboldened. The chorus of congratulations that followed felt like music to my ears. In that moment I was free, unshackled from the expectations that had burdened me for so long. I had strived for recognition in the shifting shadows of the family spotlight, working away in silence until my hard work bore fruit. And now, as they left one by one, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure, like the final notes of a symphony that linger in the air long after the musicians have exited. The walls around me felt different, suddenly imbued with a new energy. The art that adorned them, paintings I had chosen, memories I had crafted, told my story more vividly than any family narrative ever could. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window, my silhouette framed against the night sky, and I realized I was no longer just Isabella, the overlooked child. I had become Isabella, the creator. "No more scraps," I murmured to myself, almost reverently as I looked out into the darkness beyond my home. "I will feast on my success." Soon the silence was broken by my parents, lingering in the doorway. I sensed their hesitation, the way they stood rooted to the spot, absorbing my new identity. Their expressions were a mosaic of emotions: pride, shame, astonishment. "Isabella," my mother began, her voice trembling like autumn leaves in a chilly breeze, "we didn't realize how much you had accomplished." I could hear the tremor, a mix of regret and the desperate need for reconciliation. "Mom, it's okay. You don't have to feel bad," I reassured her, taking a step closer. "I always knew I had something in me, I just needed the right moment. Tonight was just that moment." The warmth of my words wrapped around us like a blanket, easing some of the tension that had filled rooms for years. I held my breath, hoping she would catch the sincerity in my tone, desperate for acknowledgement without blame. My father cleared his throat, a deep rumble that seemed to echo my life's frustrations back at me. "I should have seen it, Isabella. All this time," his gaze dropped to the floor as if shame weighed heavily upon him. "I don't know how I never recognized the passion in you." "It's no one's fault," I responded softly, holding his gaze steady. "We've all been playing our roles, haven't we? But tonight I wanted to show you that I am more than just the quiet one. I have dreams, too." I felt my voice rise slightly, drenched in the confidence I had gradually built. "And they don't depend on your acknowledgement anymore. It's not about us seeing your worth," my mother interjected, her eyes glistening in the dim light of the kitchen, tracing the shadows of my figure. "It's about you claiming it for yourself." For a heartbeat, I let her words sink in, savoring the taste of validation that had been so long denied. I took a moment to absorb the room, the dishes piled high with remnants of discussions, the warmth of candlelight painting everything in a soft glow, and the distant chatter of my sibling who was still grappling with the evening's fallout. I felt powerful, like a phoenix rising from the ashes that the family had once nestled in. "From now on, don't hesitate to show me your work," my father said, his voice regaining some strength. "No more hiding behind shadows, Isabella. We want to see the world through your eyes." "I will, Dad, and what I see is bright," I said, feeling the corners of my mouth stretch into a smile that felt as natural as breathing. I locked eyes with both of them, and I could see the glimmer of belief returning, a layer of hope that had been buried for too long. "But I also want you to understand that you may see the success, but it was built from the neglect I felt. That gave me fire." My words hung in the air like a heavy mist, both a warning and a truth that they couldn't ignore. Today I had reclaimed my narrative. I looked at them, my heart thrumming wildly as I visualized my future unfurling like the petals of a flower. So I hope, I continued, feeling bolder with each syllable, you will think twice before overlooking the black sheep again. I may have been quiet in the past, but I'm determined to roar from now on. With the finality of my words, I felt a sense of completion wash over me. My parents, taken aback, exchanged glances laden with new understanding. No longer was I the invisible being hidden in their perfect family portrait. I was emerging as vibrant and audacious. I could sense that this moment was the first step to redefining who I was and who I would become, paving the way to independence where my achievements would speak louder than any familial doubt. With unresolved emotions still thrumming in the air, I felt the sturdy ground of my identity beneath my feet, steadying me amidst the uncertainties yet to come. I was ready to embrace what lay ahead. I had spun the scraps of my reality into a tapestry so rich and potent that I could not help but believe not just in my potential, but in my right to stake my claim. Forever after tonight, people would see me, not the black sheep, but the bold architect of my own success. In the background, I had stepped into the light, illuminating the truth behind my struggle. The winds of time had shifted, and they would regret their past indifference as the last echo of laughter faded and the door clicked shut behind family members who had long ago labeled me the black sheep. A hush fell in my small dining room. The scent of burnt sage from the candles I had lit still danced in the air, mingling with the aromatic remnants of the meal I had painstakingly prepared. I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the remnants of what had been an unexpectedly triumphant evening. My heart raced, a blend of exhilaration and disbelief coursing through me. I had played their game, their party of ostentation and expectation, and I had won beyond my wildest dreams. Moments before, as guests applauded my presentation, my sibling had sat there, rigid with discomfort. I could practically feel the tension radiating off of them as they struggled to reconcile their own success with my unexpected brilliance. It was as if I had pulled the rug from under their carefully laid plans. I didn't expect this from you, they had said earlier in a half-hearted compliment, their words a clumsy attempt at masking their surprise. I had smiled sweetly, nodding softly, knowing that beneath their facade, doubts were swirling like storm clouds. Sometimes people can surprise you, I had replied, my voice steady but emboldened. The chorus of congratulations that followed felt like music to my ears. In that moment I was free, unshackled from the expectations that had burdened me for so long. I had strived for recognition in the shifting shadows of the family spotlight, working away in silence until my hard work bore fruit. And now, as they left one by one, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure, like the final notes of a symphony that linger in the air long after the musicians have exited. The walls around me felt different, suddenly imbued with a new energy. The art that adorned them, paintings I had chosen, memories I had crafted, told my story more vividly than any family narrative ever could. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window, my silhouette framed against the night sky, and I realized I was no longer just Isabella, the overlooked child. I had become Isabella, the creator. No more scraps, I murmured to myself, almost reverently as I looked out into the darkness beyond my home. I will feast on my success. Soon the silence was broken by my parents, lingering in the doorway. I sensed their hesitation, the way they stood rooted to the spot, absorbing my new identity. Their expressions were a mosaic of emotions, pride, shame, astonishment. Isabella, my mother began, her voice trembling like autumn leaves in a chilly breeze, we didn't realize how much you had accomplished. I could hear the tremor, a mix of regret and the desperate need for reconciliation. Mom, it's okay. You don't have to feel bad, I reassured her, taking a step closer. I always knew I had something in me, I just needed the right moment. Tonight was just that moment. The warmth of my words wrapped around us like a blanket, easing some of the tension that had filled rooms for years. I held my breath, hoping she would catch the sincerity in my tone, desperate for acknowledgement without blame. My father cleared his throat, a deep rumble that seemed to echo my life's frustrations back at me. I should have seen it, Isabella. All this time, his gaze dropped to the floor as if shame weighed heavily upon him. I don't know how I never recognized the passion in you. It's no one's fault, I responded softly, holding his gaze steady. We've all been playing our roles, haven't we? But tonight I wanted to show you that I am more than just the quiet one. I have dreams, too. I felt my voice rise slightly, drenched in the confidence I had gradually built. And they don't depend on your acknowledgement anymore. It's not about us seeing your worth, my mother interjected, her eyes glistening in the dim light of the kitchen, tracing the shadows of my figure. It's about you claiming it for yourself. For a heartbeat, I let her words sink in, savoring the taste of validation that had been so long denied. I took a moment to absorb the room, the dishes piled high with remnants of discussions, the warmth of candlelight painting everything in a soft glow, and the distant chatter of my sibling who was still grappling with the evening's fallout. I felt powerful, like a phoenix rising from the ashes that the family had once nestled in. From now on, don't hesitate to show me your work, my father said, his voice regaining some strength. No more hiding behind shadows, Isabella. We want to see the world through your eyes. I will, Dad, and what I see is bright, I said, feeling the corners of my mouth stretch into a smile that felt as natural as breathing. I locked eyes with both of them and I could see the glimmer of belief returning, a layer of hope that had been buried for too long. But I also want you to understand that you may see the success, but it was built from the neglect I felt. That gave me fire. My words hung in the air like a heavy mist, both a warning and a truth that they couldn't ignore. Today I had reclaimed my narrative. I looked at them, my heart thrumming wildly as I visualized my future unfurling like the petals of a flower. So I hope, I continued, feeling bolder with each syllable, you will think twice before overlooking the black sheep again. I may have been quiet in the past, but I'm determined to roar from now on. With the finality of my words, I felt a sense of completion wash over me. My parents, taken aback, exchanged glances laden with new understanding. No longer was I the invisible being hidden in their perfect family portrait. I was emerging as vibrant and audacious. I could sense that this moment was the first step to redefining who I was and who I would become, paving the way to independence where my achievements would speak louder than any familial doubt. With unresolved emotions still thrumming in the air, I felt the sturdy ground of my identity beneath my feet, steadying me amidst the uncertainties yet to come. I was ready to embrace what lay ahead. I had spun the scraps of my reality into a tapestry so rich and potent that I could not help but believe not just in my potential, but in my right to stake my claim. Forever after tonight, people would see me, not the black sheep, but the bold architect of my own success.